Today we're going to go over the next steps in your object self-portrait project. Our word of the day today is composition. We're going to learn about what a composition means and how to compose your artwork to make a meaningful or interesting composition. The dictionary definition for composition is the nature of something's ingredients or constituents, the way in which a whole or mixture is made up. Basically, what that means is all of the pieces that are put together to make something, to compose it. A composition is also another name for a work of music, literature, or art. This painting by Vasily Kandinsky is called Composition Number 8. This is a painting that he made that he was trying to show music in. And so he had to think about all of the different pieces of his painting and where he was going to place them and how he was going to put them together to compose this artwork. So far this year, we've talked a lot about the elements of art, and today we're going to go over some of the principles of design. At this point, you should be familiar with things like line, shape, form, space, texture, value, and color. Now, these are our basic building blocks of art. You're going to see things like this in your artwork. The principles of design are the way you put these things into the artwork, what types of lines you use, where you place them in the space, what color they are, and what shapes they make. And so when you are composing your artwork, you're thinking about all of these things right here that you see on the screen and where you're going to place them to make an interesting piece of artwork. These are the principles of design: balance, proportion, emphasis, contrast, variety, unity, pattern, and movement. These are all different ways that you can put together multiple elements of art. Of all of these principles of design, the ones that we're going to focus on for today are emphasis, movement, and unity. These are the three that we're going to talk about today because these are the three that are going to help you out the most when you're figuring out how to place all of these random objects and things that you have into your artwork in an interesting way that's going to make people look at it and think to themselves, wow, who is this person that all of these pieces represent? Emphasis has to do with the part that draws your attention. When I show this painting to most of my classes, they tell me that the emphasis, the thing that grabs their attention first, is often this big circle in the top left corner. When Kandinsky made this painting, he was trying to paint a picture of music. And so that piece that he added in there might have been a really loud sound or something that he was trying to represent. Movement has to do not with the picture actually moving itself, because this is a painting. The painting's not moving. The thing that is moving is your eye. You're looking at all these different things all over the artwork, and you're noticing all these different pieces, and your eye is moving around, going all over the place to see all of these different things that are all over the artwork. And so when you're thinking about movement for this piece of art that you are making, you want to have different things all over the page in a way that makes people look at all the different parts and wonder, what are all these different pieces and how can they go together to make something? Unity has to do with the fact that everything in this image goes together. Everything in here feels like it belongs. And some ways that you can do that are to put together pieces that look like they match each other. Everything in this painting is either a bright color or it's a black outline. Do you see that? And so all the pieces kind of feel like they go together. If this yellow circle over here didn't have that black outline, it might seem kind of lonely over there off to the side, but that black outline makes it match all of the other things all over the painting that have a black outline. When this artist made this painting, he made a lot of decisions about where to place everything in his composition, how to compose all of these circles and lines and shapes together to make something that was interesting or to make something that's meaningful. You're going to do the same thing with your art. Here are some examples that I have made using different compositions. We started this project yesterday by coming up with a list of things that could represent you. Things about your interests, things you like, things that represent stuff that people could look at and see in a piece of artwork and be able to guess which one is yours if they know you well enough. Here's the example that I showed you. It's got all of these things in it. It's got art, it's got plants, gardening, my cat's in there, and it shows the outdoors in this way. But there are so many other ways that I could have put these same pieces together to make it feel a little bit different. So here are some other examples. This drawing right here is just a different composition of the same objects. So I'm still representing art. There are art supplies in here. I decided to put these big swirlies in there. I'm going to make it really colorful up here. So that could represent art. It's still got gardening. This is a little hand shovel going into some dirt over here. It's got plants. There's a plant over here that's coming into the picture. A lot of it's going off the edge. My cat's still in there, but it doesn't have to be super obvious. So I put little footprints in the dirt. So you can represent all of the things in your list in a lot of different ways. Here's another one. So this one could go a lot of different directions, and that's what I was going for. So I made my paintbrushes really big. I zoomed in on those. I made the cat really simplified and like a stylized kind of cartoon cat. If you turn it this way, then you can see the little plant that's sprouting over here and the clouds that are up in the sky. I also added some interesting texture. And so when you're talking about the principles of design here, you might see these darker areas are going to have more emphasis. Whereas with this design, it might be my bright colored area that has more emphasis. But for both of these, hopefully your eye is still moving all around and looking at all the different pieces and parts. So it's still got movement. And now, like I was saying yesterday, you can make this any style. We want it to represent you. So if drawing things realistically is not your thing, then here is another drawing using the same objects, but it's more simplified. This one's more in the cartoon style. And so this one, I could leave this bold outline around everything, and that gives it a sense of unity. Most of the things in this image are also going off the edge, so they all go together because they have that in common. And so your list of things can be shown so many different ways. Think about what kind of composition you might want to have. How will you arrange all of the different pieces so that you have an interesting work of art that represents you? Here are some examples of some similar projects. I just found these on the internet. So all of these are drawings or photographs or paintings of objects that could represent a person. Maybe one of these pieces of artwork you can look at and it reminds you of somebody that you know, just because all those little pieces together are little things that might remind you of them. So some of them are set up like a still life. A still life would be something like this one, where it's actual objects that are all sitting in a space and the artist has arranged them in an interesting way so that they could draw them all together like that. You could definitely think about yours as a still life. This one is more of laying each object out individually and then putting these big bold outlines around all the different shapes that you see. Instead of showing overlapping, they're showing each of the objects individually so that you can see them all. The one in the top left does kind of the same thing, where all of the little pieces are laid out so you can see them. This one has done something really interesting where they have arranged all of the pieces to actually look like it could be a person. And so if you wanted to do something like that, there's a lot of detail in there, and there's a lot of work to be done, but you could do some cool things like that if you'd like. It doesn't really matter to us how you arrange the objects, but we want it to represent you. And so think about which way of representing these objects is more like you. Having all the objects in the middle of the page, is that like you? Are you kind of introverted? Letting everything go off the edge of the page because maybe you're a little bit extra like that? Or do you want to be really straightforward and try to show a person? How will you arrange all of your pieces? That is what composition is all about. Today you're going to compose your rough draft. This can be done on any paper. So those 3 that I showed you earlier were all on printer paper, and that'll be perfect for this. You're going to spend about 1 day, maybe 1.5, 2 tops on this drawing. And all it is deciding where you're going to place all of the images that you want in your artwork, how you're going to arrange everything. So some questions to ask yourself. What part do you want to be larger? What parts should be smaller? What part do you want to stand out? Are you going to use overlapping in yours? Will you have things going off the edge of the page? What style are you going to draw it in? Is it going to be really realistic? Is it going to be more simplified? Is it going to be kind of cartoony? Is it going to be kind of rough and scratchy? How detailed do you want the drawing to be? And think about all of these things while you are making your rough draft.